Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to Be with Mike G, the show of life, the show of art, London Outlaws, Prince, Billy Idol, Mezcal. That's right, today's guest is AdrinaAdrina, the amazing artist, creator, and co-founder / creative director for Gem and Bolt Mezcal. This is a good conversation about how art transforms and turns into a liquid. This is a very interesting Mezcal, Gem and Bolt. It has some herbal infusions, and it's made somewhat like a pechuga. It's very delicious. It has an interesting, reminiscent kind of herbal green vegetal quality along with that espadine. You guys need to try that. But it's great to hear the story and how all of this came to be. Mezcal brings us all together, and this is yet another shining example of how it has inspired another artist. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this great chat with AdrinaAdrina, co-founder of Gem and Bolt Mezcal.
I had an unusual space in the world for being an artist because I was also a curator.
Oh.
And so most every show I was ever in or partook in, I was curating as well. Yeah. So I was really into the combination of things coming together.
Right.
And, you know, it's a different stage.
It is.
It's a stage, actually.
Yeah, it really is.
Mm-hmm.
As a brand owner, has that changed a little bit where you kind of...
Not at all. It's exactly the same.
Because, as a brand owner, I go out and I try not to let anybody know, but when they find out, then they're asking all these kinds of questions. Like, oh, how are things going? How's the business? And all of that. But for you want to feel it instead of have to talk about it all the time.
I enjoy talking about it. It's more, and I enjoy talking about the process and the story and all of these things. Mm. But when you ask about myself, within all of it, I prefer to be spoken about.
So you must have an amazing PR group. Have to. No.
We do.
Or amazing PR person even, perhaps.
We have an amazing, very boutique PR lovely lady.
They do the best job.
Yeah.
Get out of the firm space. Well, so today's interesting. We were talking about the eclipse earlier. For me, it felt like a moment of transition a lot. I was kind of, in a way, it was this release for me. And emotionally, I feel a lot better now. Do you kind of, you were talking about that earlier, where you kind of felt this looming sense of nausea. How does it feel now? Do you feel kind of purged a little bit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it was pretty immediate as well, which I found interesting. I did not expect that at all. We were talking about it earlier in a group, and I felt like a pressure in my stomach, like something was like kind of moving around there. And the moment, I would say about 5 minutes after the eclipse, it was just like,
It's strange.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we kind of just entered the next chapter a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So
I feel that.
I do too, yeah. It's very, very palpable today, especially.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, having a company that is so beautifully organized and formed by women, other minority groups and things right now are having a bit of a go. There's a bit of friction. And in this recent kind of modern time for you, and of course we'll talk about Mezcal, which is a nice intersection here, but how do you feel as a woman, a strong woman with a great company, in the face of perhaps is a bit of tension right now, a bit of inequality that was more present now than it had been maybe 2 years ago?
Well, that's interesting. I have felt from the beginning of our Spirits adventure that our perspective on how do I put it? This is always such a hard conversation, right? It's like a challenging one. We have not felt as if we were a minority entering the spirits world. I know that there's a greater ratio of men in spirits and less women, obviously, but we've been very welcome because I think the times have changed. And I think that the opening is there. And I tend to stay really focused on what's immediate around me, and we all do that. I think all of the women and the people that work within Gem and Bolt are very much having personal relationships and engaging from that perspective. And so I don't feel the outside tension in Gem and Bolt in any shape or form, honestly.
No, I think that's a brilliant thing.
Yeah.
Because the larger you pan out, if you will, I think the more contentious it becomes. But when you talk about agave spirits, you talk about agave lovers, it's a completely different thing. A little insular, but yet very, very passionate, very, very accepting.
It's true.
When you think about that community, right? And was it something you were always a part of, just personally as a spirits lover or aficionado?
Well, I started out loving agave spirits, specifically tequila, before I knew Mezcal well. And then, once I met Mezcal, there's still tequila that I enjoy. Of course. But I'm greatly a Mezcal drinker.
Yeah.
So, it's been a long adventure and love affair.
It's kind of, for instance, David Lynch, right? So you watch Blue Velvet. Cool, Blue Velvet. People kind of get it. It's maybe one of the most cogent of his movies. Maybe. But then you go to like Inland Empire or Mulholland Drive, and you're like, what the fuck? But so to me...
it's true.
It is true, right? So do you feel like somehow Mezcal is more rich, more cerebral, more creative than tequila? And this is not to... this is not a pejorative conversation about tequila, but Mezcal offers something different.
Well, tequila was a Mezcal. They just shifted their process when they started producing more. So it's a different agave, and I think that the process that we use with Mezcal, that's so artisanal, obviously, connects you closer to the earth. And so I guess the answer is yes, but I hate to diss tequila because, I do appreciate it.
Tequila's great, but it's not as much of a thinking piece as Mezcal is. No. That's ultimately what it is. Just a tad more cerebral. Well, of course, the intersection of art and spirits happens for lots of us, and it's a very natural progression. But this story ultimately starts, you're from Virginia originally, is that correct?
Yeah, mountains of Virginia. Deep mountains of Virginia.
In a, what could be considered a closed-off fashion or a very, very open kind of artistic upbringing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, both. So we were living, Ellie, my art and business partner, co-founder of Gem and Bolt, she and I are from the same place.
Both from the same place.
Oh, you didn't know this?
No. I read the bios and stuff too.
This is one of the best parts of the story.
Oh, amazing.
Our fathers were outlaws together. I've known her since she was born, a little bit older. So, we grew up in a very bohemian enclave there, but we were deep in the hollers of Virginia where people had, came over from Europe and settled there. So it was closed in that sense, closed in the mountains and very remote. But
that's incredible.
Basically, it would be like if all of us, a bunch of people you knew, were like, hey, let's move to this cool place and, drop out.
What do you do just for fun? Because I imagine it's quite remote, as you mentioned. Or is it relatively metropolitan?
We learned how to celebrate. We really brought this forward. We learned how to celebrate from our elders. Well, they weren't old then, they were young. But we learned how to, they were throwing lots of parties and tons of musicians, and there was art, and it was very, very engaging, social, celebratory, and very communal. There were lots of communes. And,
Did it spark an interest in any particular field for you? Because, of course, the openness of art makes sense that, of course, that would happen. But maybe music, maybe drama, maybe film, anything particularly that you really, really enjoyed?
I think the reason that we ended up integrating so many mediums into our art world and then into Gem and Bolt ultimately is because of the way we engage celebration there. So, music, art, herbs, all of these things that ultimately we've kind of put together all come from that background. They were really very, very deeply engaged by our parents.
Where were your parents from then? From Virginia too?
My mom was originally from California.
Yeah. Okay.
But long stories. My father was from DC.
Yeah.
A lot of people moved in from other places. Ellie's parents were from, up north.
Yeah. Was it a thing where, so I actually just spoke to somebody from Campari that had a very similar story. Yeah.
Wow.
Living and growing up in an area outside of San Francisco and basically this artistic community. And her parents were a lawyer. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And then her dad was a scientist. And they said, we're dropping this so that our daughter can have the most fulfilling and artistic upbringing possible. So was this kind of a a crossroads in some sense? Did they have like a professional career before they came to this place?
Oh, that's really good. My mother was 18 when she had me.
Oh, yeah.
And my father was a Vietnam vet.
Yeah.
I think he'd been back for maybe 8 years. But no, very different. Very different.
Very different.
My mother went on to become a very professional person, but that was later on.
What career? Just curious.
She's in food and water issues, we'll say.
So being immersed then in nature, immersed in celebration, how was your sense of connection to nature at that point? Did you feel, being all around you, did you feel like that was something that also had maybe a life of its own?
Yeah, I don't think I was aware that there was anything different at that point. There were times that we would go to the city, which was very rare.
Yeah.
And
what was the closest city?
Charlottesville is
Charlottesville?
actually.
Really?
I know.
No
I can't believe this as we're on this conversation.
That's amazing.
So, but Charlottesville's a beautiful, UVA is there. It's a wonderful. Town. I loved Charlottesville. It was like kind of the big city for me when I was a child. So. We also went to Boston to Jamaica Plain.
That's good too.
I love Jamaica.
Very, very big city, much different than Charlottesville. Not as beautiful, but architecturally beautiful, right? It's just different. Mm-hmm. Is it contrasted? Did you get more pop culture that way? Because I guess I assume it's kind of secluded and you guys are making your own culture.
We were making our own culture.
Right, instead of bringing it in. But then you go to like Charlottesville, is it kind of a different exposure altogether?
Yeah, well, I think it was interesting. This was the 80s for me. So when I started engaging Charlottesville and remembering, what was going on in the outside world. Yeah. And you can learn pop culture really quickly, but you can't make culture very easily. Like, it's a much different process. So we were coming from the other side for sure. I never had a television.
That's good.
I still have only had a TV when I lived in London.
Music, was that influential for you?
Massively. Elliott's mother was a musician, and she was basically our rock and roll star in the community. We had a band called the OKs there.
The OK.
They were, these are all people we knew, but they played every weekend, and we were all there. So,
anybody that from the outside, somebody maybe that's like a universal artist that you really connected with, getting exposed to music on a larger level?
Yeah,
anybody?
Prince was probably my first love.
Okay, yeah,
it's true.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I had half my room was Prince and half it was Billy Idol. So
this is pretty good. Yeah. It's a pretty good combination.
I thought it was a good combo.
It's not bad at all.
I met Billy Idol later,
Did you?
maybe 10 years ago, and
he still looks all right, doesn't he?
He looked amazing. Yeah, I was like, what did you do to yourself? How did you do this?
Because he was, and I don't know as much about Billy Idol as some other folks, but I think he lived a relatively clean lifestyle later on. Right, I know it was real rough early on when he was in the Generation X or something. I can't remember the band that was.
Gen X.
Thank you. Yeah. So was that a nice, complete circle meeting him? Was it a good moment?
I was so excited. I actually was doing stylist work then in
LA
for a moment. I used to subsidize my art world with stylist work.
Yeah.
And I did a music video and 10 years ago. I don't know the song. I can't remember right now.
Well, Cradle of Love is his return single.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what it was.
Right, yeah.
I can't believe you know that.
That's I know dumb shit. I'll tell you right. Trivial is a word I really am familiar with.
Yeah, I was ridiculously excited.
That's amazing.
I even took a picture with him, which I never do with anyone.
Yeah, you still have it?
Oh, yeah. It's in one of my books.
Then thinking about that path then. So what is the next step for someone? Is it to teach the kids that are growing up in this community, or is it to finally go on your own and find your own way?
You mean for Ellie and I when we left the area?
Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, a lot of our peers and people who are young, I was of the first generation of kids that kind of came in. And a lot of people stayed. A lot of kids stayed and had families. And there's still a big community there. I go back. The area hasn't changed much. Wow. It's a really interesting place. But Ellie and I both took off immediately and went out in the world and individually had our own, schooling, art lives. Yeah. Lived around the world before we actually met up and became an artist duo.
Did you feel like you just had to create getting out of that community, or had you not discovered that yet?
No, I didn't think about it getting out of the community. I just was very ready to explore the world.
Yeah. Wanderlust, right?
Yeah.
What was your first exposure to something that was much larger and kind of foreign and maybe strange culture once you got out?
Well, really, it was before I left home. My parents, I used to go with my mother and my stepfather to Tulum. So I've been going there since I was a child, early teens. And so it was larger than life in a certain sense.
Yeah.
And definitely very other from where I came from. Actually very similar, but a very different landscape.
Totally different colors.
Yeah. Different colors. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, brown and the greens, I imagine.
Yes.
In Virginia. So when you think about what is the straight and narrow path for a lot of us, and that is going to college, getting that 4-year degree. I think it's 2.5 kids now. Is that right? Is that the prescription?
Or maybe it's is it 1.5 yet? It was 2.5.
I mean, frankly, I hope it's fewer and fewer.
Good move.
But that's just personal. But for you, were you saying, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to pursue a degree. I want to go into academia.
My mother's very, very academic and intellectual.
Yeah.
I would never have not double negative, but not gone to school. So I did, but I spent 3 years abroad when I went. So
that's amazing. Is this when you landed in London to study?
That was my second degree. I went to Evergreen, and Elliott went to Hampshire. I don't know if you know either of these schools. They're like very similar, but different coasts, different.
Would you focus on then in your first degree? English, art. What was your
anthropology and dance?
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Any areas of the world that you found more interesting anthropologically?
I find all of it interesting, honestly. But I went and lived. I spent about, I guess I was there for 9 months. 9 months in South America, but I lived in India for a year then. And I studied Kathakali in southern India, in Kerala.
Oh, wow.
And studied Kathakali, which is a really interesting dance form. All male, actually. I don't know why I chose that, but.
Were you still able to participate given the culture there?
Oh, no, I had a great teacher. I was deep in it. But, I mean, it's like ballet. You need 16 years, so a year is not very long. Yeah. But I was really studying dance to study stories and mythological stories. So
interesting. Mm-hmm. You more of a Roman person or a Greek person?
Greek.
Romans kind of ripped him off, right?
I mean, I appreciate all the Roman stuff, but
of course. But it came with much aggression, it feels like.
Yes.
But I digress. That's a cultural history there.
My name is Greek. We were talking about my name earlier.
That's right.
My name is Greek.
Do you know what are some words that it represents?
All I know is that she was a pirate.
A pirate?
In the early, I think it was like 1200 something or other. And yeah, she was a pirate. But she was an interesting pirate because she went down with her ship when her crew was killed.
So she had integrity.
Yeah. She was a martyr.
Well, all right. There's the double side
to that.
Right?
I mean, it depends on how you look at it.
She's amazing. She went down with the ship. But, only because she really said she wanted to talk about going down with the ship. Of course, not afforded that opportunity after. So again, the second piece in London, it feels like a big chapter of your career and your journey was formed there.
Absolutely.
What drew you? Not that I love London so much.
Okay, good, because it's my city.
I love London. It's like, I feel like I'm at home every time I go there, and perhaps I even am from a blood perspective, so we'll see. But what drew you to London then?
Well, the interesting thing is I didn't know that I loved London yet. I had been there a couple times, but I knew I loved the school that I wanted to go to there. So I was very, very much wanting to go there.
Yeah. Had you traveled there and kind of like hung out a little bit before? Or?
I went and did a summer course at the school I decided to go to there to check it out, make sure it was everything they said, and and then I fell in love with London as well. So I love London.
We'll nerd out about London for a second. What do you love about London?
Part of it is also intuitive for me, and maybe there's some genetic stuff.
Yeah, it's got to be, right?
But something like that.
Yeah.
But I love London because of the culture. But when I say the culture, I mean like the layers of culture that's there. So I think it has something to do with the fact that they colonized the world and the absorption that they've had of cultures into the system and the way that that's kind of formulated itself in music and art and everything. It's very different.
It is. It's so
extra.
We feel, and I love the States. I do. We've done a lot of great things. Jazz is an amazing thing. We have some great food that we've created, great spirits even.
Incredible music.
Bourbon. I mean, come on. That's a big thing.
Yummy.
But they all have this short-lived nature to them. But you go to an ancient town like London, like Paris, and you feel this depth to it that's really different. And for you, so many things you can dive into moving in there, but what was the thing that what in terms of extracurricularly? Because of course you're going there for school, but was it the food you dove into? Was it
did a lot of clubbing back in those days? No, but I love the museums as well. I have to say, I was very involved in the club culture in the early 2000s.
Was it as good as I've read about?
In fucking crap. Honestly, I'm just being honest. There were things that were really going on there that were, they created things. they moved things forward.
Yeah.
I'd say.
That's the underworld era, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big piece of it.
Yeah.
Tell me, just because vicariously I'm going to live through you a little bit. This is the luxury I get of being on this chair and drinking mezcal with you. Tell me what it felt like to be in one of the heights of what's the word? The apex of one of those evenings at a show or at a club. What would that really feel like?
Well, this is one of the things I'm most attracted to in life in general is celebration. And like whenever I say celebration is ceremony, I really mean it. Like it's that moment, and it's not just like we can use London and club example, but
it's just a
metaphor,
very
probably, good party, a very good celebration. There's a moment when the connectivity of the crowd and whatever else is going on, the music, all just comes together.
Yeah.
And everybody just kind of loses themselves in that together, and it's very, very healthy for humans, I do believe.
I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
Is that maybe just the epitome of being in the moment?
Yes, but you can do that in a party. That's the thing. you can do it in many other situations as well.
With a lot of other people that are probably attractive, and perhaps you're drinking, which is an amazing thing and communal in itself.
Yes, it's communal.
That's right. I think you're right, because it's great to be introspective and have a good moment with oneself, but it's far greater to share with other people.
And many at once.
Parties.
Yes.
I love it.
Good parties.
Excellent parties.
Excellent parties.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that time and place. Yeah. I want it. Yeah, again, it's like one of those things I'd love to revisit because I was just a tad too young to be there at that.
I have photos.
Good, you do?
I documented everything very, 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 very well.
When does the book come out?
You will see it at some point in the near future.
That's amazing. Chronicling.
Maybe just a piece of that in there at least.
I can't wait to see it because I bet it's very neon-y. Lots of lights.
There's light. There's light for sure.
So this pursuit, though, obviously you're driven into this artistic career where you're actually physically manifesting your creativity on the page or on the canvas or on the whatever medium. I know that you've worked with stiletto heels before, which is an interesting thing.
I was studying fashion in London.
Oh, that's right.
But I used it as an art degree, very, very much as an art and kind of film degree.
Film as well.
I was doing film work within my
no kidding
fashion.
Can you tell me a couple of the main influences for you aesthetically at that point when you're in school at London?
Oh, that's a really good question. What were my influences? Influences are always really funny for me because I absorb whatever's around me, but I never really directly reference individuals or individual artists.
Of course, But you're moved by things.
Absolutely.
Anything that particularly moved you?
A variety of Japanese designers were definitely why I got involved in fashion. But fashion for me was in the era where we called it, there was an avant-garde movement going on that was very renegade, and I was a big part of that.
Film-wise, because I'm a huge film
I just made a film every project because I was a little bored, honestly.
Because you're bored?
Well, you had to do an outfit every 2 weeks, or like a shirt or a jacket, and like it was very incredible school, incredible teachers, everything amazing about the course, but it was very one-dimensional. So I did it for a majority of it. I did a very short kind of, we'll just call it music video-esque little film that went along with it all. Yeah.
You didn't have a music career, did you?
No.
Okay, I was making sure.
I would love to have had.
Those videos will surface eventually.
Sing for you. I could sing for you, but it's not gonna.
I think it'd be fine.
I recorded one song once upon a time.
I knew there was something.
I made a song for a professor that, it was a joke though, but I recorded it when I was at Evergreen. So
it exists.
I have it. I'm the only
Challenge
person
accepted.
that has it. It's a tape.
Well, it's harder to get. It's a tape. Well, then you finish up. You've got these multi-focuses with art and film and all of this fashion as well. What do you want to do with it? How do you want to share your aesthetic perspective with the world at that point? Unleashed. Yeah.
How did I want to do it at that point in time? Well, I was very interested in merging many pieces together. So I was always doing, when I would do a show, we would bring in celebration and we would bring in elixirs and cocktails and present it to the world from many different levels.
Do you like curating experiences then as well? Mm-hmm. So both what people are drinking, what they're seeing. Mm-hmm. Did you remain in London for this first kind of foray into that professionally?
I stuck in London for some years, and I'm there very regularly as well.
You came back to the States, I guess?
I went back to the States for a moment, and then, I moved to Marfa.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
did you know that?
I
That's
did
funny.
know that. Yeah,
I always think it's funny to me, actually.
Why? Well, Marfa is it's the epicenter of bohemian culture. Is that fair?
Well, I mean, it's one of the little mini epicenters, mini maxi. We could call it mini maxi.
Okay. Yeah. No, oddly enough, I saw a traveling blog where a man named Alton came and you guided him around and he took some pictures of you.
I was just texting with Alton right before we were talking. He's one of my besties.
That's amazing. Yeah. And so it's like, so she was in Marfa as well, again, fostering this creative and artistic career. Yeah. How was your experience there, especially being around so much agave? There's actually quite a lot of agave.
Oh, it was a good agave time for sure. Marfa's wild. I mean, Marfa's it's so unusual and it's off the charts. It's one of those very spectacular places you can only really get Marfa.
Is it worth I'm going to use this word.
Okay.
Is it worth the hype? Because you
absolutely.
It is. Okay, good.
That's why the hype is there, I guess.
Well deserved then.
Yeah.
Good.
It's special. It's a very special place.
It feels like it.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's
I've
odd.
been through it a couple times.
You've been?
Yeah.
What did you think?
It was odd.
Yeah.
It was me versus the people that was like, why are you in my town?
But was there a party going on when you were there? This is always a question. It's really important to be there during a social moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also just nice and weird to be there without that.
I love how windy it was.
Yeah.
It's really intense. Strange how flat, but it's very windy.
Yeah.
So then it begs the question, why would you leave? Why would you leave such a place?
I moved to Mexico to start Jim and Bolt with Ellie. We did it.
It's amazing.
From Marfa. We quite literally drove from Marfa in a truck down to Mexico.
Into Oaxaca or other places?
No, we drove. I mean, we went straight to Tulum, actually.
Tulum,
yeah. I was there.
Revisiting some familiar
Lots of revisiting of Tulum. There was a lot of that going on.
Was Mezcal something that, because I try to think of it, we all have our stories. Yeah. And the saying goes that you don't find Mezcal, Mezcal finds you.
Well, that's true.
Right? And
absolutely.
So for you, what was that situation? What was that scenario in which it kind of just landed in your lap?
Well, it's funny because, I was a Mezcal lover. Ellie and I both were Mezcal lovers. And when we first started the project, I'm doing the quote.
Air quotes here, yeah.
The quote there of Jim and Bolt, which was very organic and exploratory in the beginning. We were making an elixir with Damiana. And we loved Mezcal so much. And I was like, it's super high alcohol. We can make tincture with it. So, I mean, That's
a great point. That's actually a really smart application.
Oh, and I really would like to tell the world nobody should be using any other spirit to make
a tincture.
No.
What do you find so compelling about? And then, I mean, Mezcal, we don't have to talk about that. We both agree. But for a tincture, what do you think it's so effective?
Well, it's very high. I mean, it's high alcohol, and that's what you need to actually pull the properties of herbs out. And it's a clean, beautiful spirit that's actually has benefits.
I'm feeling benefits right now, actually. Sipping a little bit of the Jim and Bolt, thanks to the camera.
Always.
So this is good. But this particular herb, so I make gin, so I get some herbs, right? Herbs I get.
Yeah.
But Damiana, and that's the right pronunciation, right? Yeah.
I like how you pronounce it. It is the right pronunciation, but you have an interesting...
I'm sure strange. Oh, my God. I can't even imagine. I'm taking Spanish lessons now.
Good.
And I speak a little bit of French, and so I'm going to screw everybody up when I talk to them.
That's good.
I'm already expecting it. But for you, what was the mystique, or what was the history of this, or what was it known for? Because it's something very foreign to me. I haven't seen it before.
Well, it's interesting. It's becoming more known now.
Yeah.
But it had a cult following with herbalists. And so Ellie and I grew up with quite a few herbalists, one herbalist in particular, very well known. And I'm almost positive I learned about Damiana from the beginning from her. But from that moment on, as I grew up into the world and became an adult, anybody who was into herbs was just like, Damiana. It was just like that. It would always be like, and anybody who was like kind of a secret, like a club of people would be like, you know about Damiana.
You know Betty Blackwell? This is a Texas joke, by the way.
No, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
No, it's one of the best commercials ever. But it's the same thing. Same thing with Mezcal, too. You find a friend always. If you're like, hey, do you drink Mezcal?
It's so true.
It is, right?
It's true.
What are some of the properties of this herb? What is it known to improve or known to heighten?
Well, the Aztec and the Maya and many herbalists claimed that it had properties that made you happy, and they call it an aphrodisiac, which I don't like to use that word very often because it's kind of a boring word, but that's what they said.
So something that just heightens the senses, maybe makes you feel slightly enlightened. So of course, too much of a good thing is a great thing. So using an agave base, using this herb that heightens your sense of maybe sensuality, or heightens your sense of cerebral, like all of these things. When did that idea come to mind? They said, oh,
that the two would work together?
Those two things together, forget about it.
I think it was an intuitive match, honestly. Yeah. Like, it was one of those things, it's like the Reese's cup thing. Like, how did they do that? I don't know. It just kind of happened.
There's a story for that.
Yeah.
But it is this funny.
Is there a story? I don't know.
Well, it's a fake story that there was a truck that ran into another truck, and then there was a murder.
Oh, really?
But that's fun. That's Family Guy. So that's his retelling of such collaboration. But, I mean, it makes sense. These two things playing off each other. Okay, sorry.
But they love each other. We did not know that. The thing is that those two plants, and it has to do with the maguey, which is agave, and Damiana, they love each other. There's something about the two of them together that...
Symbiotic?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, people say that the agave, like, let's say symbolically opens the heart and the mind. Sure. And, we really look at Damiana as like a heart opener. And so there's something extra about it all.
Yeah. I think that there's something that you can't read on the bottle. There's something you can't taste. It's something that exists about Mezcal. And it is transportative, and in a way, it takes you to a place that you can't really get with other spirits.
It's true.
So to heighten that, I mean, come on, you're pushing the boundaries just a little bit with this thing, right?
But it worked.
It does work. But so having this idea, right? Because, all right, so this is when the creativity piece comes into play. You develop this beautiful story about the gem and the bolt, how ultimately
no, we didn't know this.
Oh, you didn't know that?
Oh, you don't know this part. Okay.
No, yeah.
So we named ourselves Gem and Bolt. When we started, we were already an artist duo.
Sure.
And then we started the project, which we did want to do something commercial. We had no idea what we were going to do.
Yeah.
And we named it Gem and Bolt. And then we were Gem and Bolt because, we're two
like
women, female
the
artists.
Names
and we were just like, oh, Gem and Bolt. And we were like, oh, I guess we're Gem and Bolt. And then when we finally, a couple years later, we were already making our elixir with the mezcal. But when we got to Oaxaca, and I think, I can't remember who, there were a couple people were like, great name. We were like, thank you. We actually really like it. And they're like, well, for mezcal. And we were like, don't have any idea what you're talking about. Oh, my gosh. So that's how that happened.
So it was an already
accident,
that way.
Not a mistake.
And it turns out it is this saying about ultimately heat and energy with the maguey turns it into a lovely piece to ferment ultimately for the...
Well, it's the lightning hit the agave.
Is that what
so the lightning bolt hit the heart of the agave and created the sap known as mezcal. But we really, truly, honestly did not know anything about the story. And it's funny, when it was brought up the first time, it was another mezcal producer who had been saying from the beginning, he was like, you guys are going to have a mezcal brand. We were like, we don't really think so. Yeah. It was like, well, yeah, you're Gem and Bolt. We were like, what are you talking about?
So that never happens. You know what I mean? Like that in a way, it was... You foretold the story.
Exactly.
You named yourself that way. What's the word for it? It's clairvoyant almost, right?
Something like that.
So having this great idea, having this great elixir, how do you make the decision to say, all right, we're going to put it in a bottle and we're going to share it with everybody?
Well, we were making the elixir, and then this happened, exactly what we were just talking about. Mm-hmm. And we decided to have a party in Oaxaca where we brought
I'm really surprised.
Yeah. surprise. And we, Acid Polly, I don't know if you know the DJ Acid Polly. He's one of my favorite in the world, dear friend now. We brought him in to do this party. We're like, well, we shouldn't just do the elixir. We should actually infuse our mezcal now and like make it like more, a larger thing. Because before we were just doing an elixir that we were adding into mezcal cocktails.
Got it. Okay.
And that we already had the speakeasy in Oakland. Like a lot had happened, and we'd been involved in that world for, I think it felt like a long time, but I think it had been a year. And we decided to have this party, and so we started infusing.
Yeah.
And for a long while, we were hand infusing all of our mezcal ourselves for a couple years there. Thousands of liters that we were then driving to Tulum.
So you're bootlegging.
Yes.
But that's a great way to start a great brand. Bootlegging. Now, don't do that in the States.
No. We would never do that in the States.
You'll get tossed in a river somewhere. It's really a bad state of affairs. But this became something that perhaps you're like, this might be something we can share, that we can transport people to this state of mind, this communal feeling we have when we drink it. That's, again, the transportative nature of mezcal. And you said, all right, maybe we'll really do this, and we'll go and we'll create a product. I mean, because that's a big. I'm trying not to to make any comments about artists, but transitioning to something where you have a business, you need money. There are P&Ls. It is a very hard and fast shift. But for you, was that something that was a natural evolution you really wanted to get into? Well, that, I know you're a creative director, right? I mean, it's a different capacity with Jim Bolt, but you still got to turn it into something, a business.
Well, the thing that's, in all of that, the thing that's most interesting to me is that our intention in driving to Mexico from Marfa and starting Gem and Bolt, right. I'm doing little quotations again, we very intentionally our purpose was to put everything that we loved in one project. Yeah. So that's actually how we started. So we were like, okay, so what, we drew this house in the beginning stages when we were brains. We drew a house with all the rooms, and we're like, what do we love? We're like art and celebration and herbs. And the interesting thing is that we actually got all that stuff in the thing in the whole project, and which is now a brand. But that was our intention. So it was just a very organic and intuitive process.
It's a bottle of you.
Well,
if you think about
it's a bottle of Elliott and I and many other people who are involved.
Well, there's the mezcaleros that make this, but ultimately the vision, what this feels like, is an extension of your personality, your art, what you're introducing to the world. So when was the first beautiful bottle of Gem and Bolt actually in your hand, and you saw what this project had become?
Well, I think it was really those first bottles we were making for that first party.
Yeah.
The infusion. That before, moment. Did you ever see the bottle? It was just a clear bottle with a white label with a Gem and Bolt on it, and that was that way for a long while.
I've only seen the frosted bottles.
This beautiful bottle, which I love so much.
Yeah, it's incredible.
This happened about a year and 9 months ago.
Really? Does it represent your flair for aesthetic?
We are very, very happy with that bottle. We love that bottle.
Creative director. I mean, it must be your baby.
It's Ellie and we're creative directors together, and we, being an artist duo and putting our work into something like this together, you really can. Yeah, it feels like a baby. Right now, I think it's a teen.
A teen? Oh, that's way better.
Teen.
I saw the baby.
The baby part was really hard. The P&L part.
Oh, yes.
That might have been like 5 years old.
It's the worst thing. But it is good to learn and grow.
It is.
Now being part of a business, being part of owning a business. Mm-hmm. How long has the Gem and Bolt as a formation been around now?
As a formal business?
Yeah.
Well, we launched last year in the States, and so I really think that was the formal moment of businessdom. We were a project.
That's right.
We'll call it a project during those days. And so we're new in the market. But
not new. It's a piece of you and has been for a while.
We started the project about 5.5 years ago. The very, very early stages of it, Yeah.
Well, so there's all the tech detail. I mean, I know that this is copper distilled. I can taste it. This is espadín. These are great things for mezcal. Makes it accessible, but also has a lovely flavor. Has the infusion. What is the
not infusion? This is the thing.
Oh no! Sorry.
The Damiana is distilled.
Right, like
very
a pechuga.
Yeah.
Right, where it's
you were covering all of our earlier conversations today. By the way.
Yeah, because it's clear and it's beautiful and it's crisp, which means that you probably steeped it on second distillation, or you distill it once and then steep it, and then you distill it again to clarify, but give you just the lovely essence.
Beautiful. The Damiana is added in the second distillation.
Perfect.
Which is
perfect. See, just like a pechuga. Yeah. You guys do it exactly like they do. It is. I mean, it's made where the pechugas are made, just a different ingredient.
Yes.
So it's been a year or over a year now. You've been to market. How are you? Not how are you feeling, but any lessons that you've learned pretty quickly about taking your dream and actually bringing it to the market for people to drink?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier as well.
I actually had it bugged. I heard the whole conversation.
I know. I was like, were you with us all day today? No, I'm serious. Advisors, getting really good advice.
Yeah.
And, following your intuition is super, super key, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe it's not obvious, but it should be obvious. But getting help from people who have experience and a wide variety of advisors. That's been really helpful to us.
Did you think you would need that in the beginning, or did you feel like my heart's going to lead me to this thing?
I mean, we didn't even know we were going to have a mezcal brand in the beginning. we had no idea how difficult spirit or challenging and
absolutely
whatever the word is.
No, challenging
spirit is very complex, and there's lots and lots of layers to it. But it's really interesting. That's the other thing that I did not know in the beginning when I was kind of like, whoa. You don't know how compelling it is to actually engage within spirits, because as humans, we've been engaging spirits for, the existence of our evolution. Like, it's a big part of our lives. So of course it's interesting.
Sorry, I'm sipping this. This is a good thing. I hope that the mics are sensitive that they can hear me enjoying this. And sometimes when you pop a bottle, you can hear it. It's like, that's a remarkable thing.
Well, I burped earlier. I hope they couldn't hear that.
I'll filter that one out. I think I did too. Okay, actually, we'll see how it goes. Over a year, you get this mezcal on the market. It's a beautiful expression of espadín. I've heard about this brand for so long, and it's been great to meet Cameron one random night at a bar and started talking. Obviously, he's filled with love for agave, right? And it's great to meet you as well. And it's beautiful that all this stuff kind of comes together, that you're in town. So I just have a couple more questions for you, too, I think, in total. Actually, this is a side one. What's the proof on the Gem and Bolt?
44.
44, perfect, good. Because I got a weird bug up my ass about 80 proof mezcals. I just do.
I understand.
You understand?
I understand.
Thank you. I just don't want to be judged in my house.
No,
it's okay. You can judge.
I won't judge you. I promise.
Thank you.
Wait, 40 is too low?
40 for me is too low, yeah. Because 60% water. It's more than half of it is not the agave. And that's fine. People got their own flavors. And I will stand by that. And so are the best mezcaleros in the world will stand by that as well. But you're in town, and this is how often do you make it back to Texas? What's the itinerary been like while you're here?
Lots of fun. I haven't been here for some months now. It's been like 6 months, but I try to drop in as often as possible because I love Austin. And I love our team here. It's super fun.
Yeah. What do you like to do when you're in town? I mean, I know you got to do the social stuff. You got to do media with bastards like me. You have to go to tastings. But what do you really want to do when you're in town?
See the clips at Bolt&nbsp today? That was really fun. It was really fun.
That's amazing thing.
How do you have that clips Barton Springs / business meeting?
Yeah, it was actually Cameron's idea. I have to say, he was like, "Hey, should we diverge and go have like a team building?" I mean,
team building is the best word for it.
But it's always team building. Whatever we do is team building when we're together.
Has this changed in Austin a bit since you first started coming here? Have you noticed how the cocktail scene has started really emerging, food scene as well?
I lived in New Orleans for a big chunk of in like the 90s. Yeah. So I used to come here all the time, and then it's changed a lot since. The food.
It's crazy.
The whole scene here is so great.
And you always will find friends fastly and quickly with beautiful mezcal. Well, so this is the last question I want to ask you, and I have no idea how you're going to answer it. I love this question, and let's say, we're all here sipping mezcals. It's a great moment for me. I really appreciate you coming by. But for you, let's say you're sipping mezcal anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter where it is. And you can have and share a mezcal with anybody, living or deceased. Who would you love to just sip Gem and Bolt with, or whatever mezcal you want, right? And dive into someone's mind. Who would you like to have a conversation with?
Oh, God. I really don't like these kinds of questions. So I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it.
But think about this. This is the thing about this question.
My grandfather, who didn't drink, by the way.
He didn't drink?
Yeah.
Was he what?
He was a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it's a long story. But that would have been really interesting to me, honestly, because he was quite a mind. He had a brilliant mind, and he was really connected to plants and the earth. And he was a very unusual human.
Yeah. I think that's
lived off the land.
Well, then it's, in a way, we always go back to our roots. And if being a botanist or being connected to the earth is something that's in your genes, you're always going to return to that. And I guess this spawns one last question for you then. Your mother, will she drink mezcal with you?
She actually is in town with me right now.
That is amazing.
And she has tried Gem and Bolt before. She is a wine drinker.
Yeah.
And not a spirits drinker. Sure. But the other night we went and had a couple margaritas. We were at Leach's. So, and I was like, okay, I can't believe this. somehow I didn't notice that my mother has not properly had a gem bolt night, which is crazy. I'm very close with my mom.
Yeah.
And we got to watch my mother not only drink gem and bolt all night long, just two cocktails, but it was quite a bit for her. The next morning she woke up, she's like, I have no hangover. And I was like, I've been telling you about this.
Yeah, this is that thing. Remember how I was doing this thing?
Exactly what Cameron said.
So
that was really fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with this emerging and growing category of mezcal. Lots of new conversations to have, lots of new places to go and introduce people to these things. But I think the one thing we can agree on above anything else is that it tastes pretty damn good, and it always makes you feel good.
It does.
Mezcal always does. Never had a bad mezcal night.
No.
Never.
Me either.
So, Adrina, it's been just a pleasure.
What a pleasure. Yeah. Thank you for
so
having
much.
me.
Brilliant. And hopefully we'll sip some more mezcal after the mic cuts. So, Godspeed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, there we have it. Another mezcal story, this time with co-founder and creative director of Gem and Bolt Mezcal, Drina, a beautiful artist, sharing this amazing mezcal. The espadín infused with Damiana root makes for a very unctuous and luxurious drinking experience. Mezcal is art. And it is no surprise that such a creative spirit and such a creative life that Adrina has lived has led to such a beautiful product. Thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me, and thank you for paying forward the beauty of mezcal with Gem and Bolt. And thank you for listening to Show to View with Mike G. No matter how many times you've seen They Live by John Carpenter and think, man, this is more relevant a movie than it ever has been. Or if you're wondering if Mindhunter on Netflix is something worth watching, someone let me know. Please keep thinking.